Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. I am so excited today because my friend Miranda Devine is here. She is, as you probably know, an award-winning columnist at the New York Post, but now she has a new podcast. It's called Pod Force One, and she just happened to launch it with like the best guest ever, President Donald Trump. Thank you so much for being here, Miranda.
Oh, thanks for having me, Tudor. It's great to be with you.
I thought your interview was fantastic. I mean, I listened to it and it covered so many things, but it was also fantastic because I think President Trump was more open and honest and relaxed than I've seen him in a long time. I felt like he just knew you were there to have a good conversation with him, and you got a lot of really strong information from him, which was amazing.
Thank you. And look, I mean, it's hard to do a bad interview with President Trump because he's really so generous with his time, his thoughts, his kind of perceptions about the world and people. If you care to not do gotcha questions all the time and you have some respect, he gives a lot and he knows a lot and he's been through a lot. He has a lot of wisdom, a lot of insight, a lot of access to, the most powerful people in the world. So he's really worth listening to.
No, that's such a good point that if you don't attack, and we don't always have to be attacking everybody, and you gave him a lot of opportunity to talk about what happened in the Biden administration, what's happening in his administration. I thought one part was really interesting because you went through the auto pen in great detail and said, were these crimes that were committed? And I thought he gave a lot of grace there because he said, look, it's not up for me to go after him. And he said, I don't actually think Joe Biden knew what he was doing. I think other people used it. And he gave him a lot of credit for what he thought in the past. I felt that was interesting too, because Donald Trump was looking at who Joe Biden had been before he kind of lost his marbles and said he was never for open borders. He was never for any of this. He said they took over the White House. What did you think when you heard him say that?
That was one aspect that I did not agree with him on. I wasn't going to challenge him there and then because it's really just an opinion. I just think he's given too much grace to Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden really has never believed in anything. He's just a hollow man who's gone with the flow. So when the flow in the Democratic Party was to be tough on crime, he was the toughest you could get on crime. It was 3 strikes and you're out, get tough on crack dealers, etc. But when things turn the other direction, you just remember in the 2020 primaries when all those Democrats were up on stage and they were asked, would you give free Medicare to illegal aliens? And they all put up their hands, including most enthusiastically was Joe Biden. So I think, particularly when it came to the border, I think that this was something he was well in favour of. He didn't not know what was going on. Of course he knew. And I think maybe he'd been well, look, there are 3 possibilities. Either he was simply a puppet, lazy, kind of losing his marbles and just didn't fight against anything, just was quite happy. I think really his main aim to become president was the glory of it, the respect he got, the plane, Air Force One, the house, the White House, Camp David, swanning around the world, being the big man on campus. That is, I think, what motivated him more than anything else. I don't really think he was that interested in making America a better place, having peace in the world. I don't think that even really was part of his mindset, whereas that is exactly what Donald Trump thinks about all the time. So either Joe Biden was just lazy and decided to outsource the important parts of his presidency to other people because he was too old, too tired, too lazy, too befuddled to do it himself, or he was just always been a chameleon and he's just a pure political animal and he goes wherever is beneficial to him to maintain his power, wherever the party is gone. And the party has gone well left. And he was like this moderate fig leaf that they used to win the 2020 election. And, he had a lot of problems, mainly his corruption, but also secondarily, I would say, his cognitive decline, which obviously accelerated over his presidency. But they buried all that. They covered up his corruption. They covered up his cognitive issues. They installed him as their candidate, and they rigged the election to make sure he won. And America has paid the consequences ever since, and now Donald Trump's trying to clean up the mess. And the third option, I guess, is that he was so befuddled that he didn't know what was going on. But I think that's the least likely. But I think it is the most charitable. And I guess from Donald Trump's point of view, he doesn't want to trash previous presidents because that trashes the presidency, and he believes very deeply in the prestige of the presidency. And of course, he's there, so it benefits him.
I'll have more coming up with Miranda Devine, but first, I want to take a moment to hear from our partner at IFCJ. Folks are seeing something truly disturbing. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. You guys have seen it around the world, and sadly, you're seeing it right here in America. Jewish schools are being targeted, synagogues are threatened, families are living in fear. It's something we hope we'd never see again in our lifetime. And let me say this, silence is not an option. This is the moment to take a stand. And that's why I want to tell you about the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, or IFCJ. They are on the front lines, providing real help where it's needed most. They're giving food and shelter to Jewish families under threat. They're building bomb shelters for children. They're helping survivors of hate rebuild their lives. And they don't just respond to crises. They work every day to prevent them. If you can give a gift today, your gift of only $45 will actually help support their life-saving work by helping to provide food, shelter, and so much more. The Bible says, I will bless those who bless you. Supporting IFCJ is a spiritual stand. It's showing up for God's people when it counts. So please call 888-488-IFCJ. That's 888-488-4325, or go to ifcj.org. Every dollar helps. Don't wait. Be the difference today. Visit ifcj.org or call 888-488-IFCJ right now. Now stay tuned. We'll be back with more after this. I think it's so much better than what we saw Joe Biden do for 4 years, going after Donald Trump and trying his hardest to get him convicted of a crime, and he would trash him publicly. And I thought it was such an incredible moment to hear Donald Trump give him grace. But I want to get into what you said, because I think that you see things in a way a lot of people don't, because for years we have been so duped by that typical politician. And what you said just now really resonated with me, because I see it in Michigan. I mean, I see it with Gretchen Whitmer, but I see it with Republicans too, where it's like, I'll say whatever it takes to get to that next level of power. And I think that's the most dangerous person out there. And how do we tell the public to be prepared or warn them of who that person is?
Look, that's such a good question. I think it's the essential question of politics, and it's an age-old question. I think that's why politicians are pretty down on the totem pole, although I think journalists are even lower. Look, what has always been the protection against the snake oil salesman politician is a robust and honest media. And unfortunately, the fourth estate has become corrupted itself for various reasons. I mean, there are some structural kind of monetary reasons. The internet just totally disrupted the sources of income for the established media brands. Moving to a subscriber base has meant, like the New York Times has quite successfully, but that means that they're captive to their subscribers. That's their constituency. It's not really to
that's
the greater public.
Yeah, I never really thought about that, but you have people paying for your product, so you better deliver what they're expecting you to deliver.
Exactly. And it's very cheap to get a subscription to the New York Times. They're always doing, bargains. And if you say you're going to cancel, then they give you an even bigger bargain. I mean, you can get it for, a few cents a week, and or $1 a week anyway. But if you bargain, you can get it for less. So I find it interesting. Like who the subscribers are is a big secret. They will not allow anyone to see it. They know. But what's to stop big blocks of activists from buying, spending $1 million buying 1 million subscriptions? That's cheap. What's to stop China from doing that? It's a much easier way of controlling the New York Times. You buy 10 million subscriptions and you control the paper. It's a lot cheaper than buying shares in New York Times Company.
I mean, that's that's fascinating to think about, because we have had Gordon Chang on here so many times, and he's talked about all the different ways that China infiltrates the United States in ways you don't know and you don't think about. And honestly, that's something I hadn't thought about, the fact that the subscribers make the paper trend one way or the other. But yeah, absolutely. And why wouldn't they? That is an inexpensive way to disrupt and cause chaos in the United States. And chaos is what they want.
Exactly. Chaos is what they want. And, when people can't, the public can't believe anything anymore. I mean, they've lost trust in institutions. I think, the 24 election was a real watershed in the sort of red pilling of America, because, there we had most of the mainstream media telling the public that Donald Trump was, like Nazi, he was Hitler, he was an insurrectionist, he was a criminal, he was a crook, he was a Russian spy. I mean, whatever they could throw at him, they threw at him. He was amoral, he was a degenerate, he's stupid, he's senile. I mean, you name it. They blackguarded his reputation every which way, and it worked. And not just in America, around the world. There are still countries, Sweden and Australia, I saw a poll recently where something like 60 or 70% don't like Donald Trump. They reject his leadership. And in America, what happened was that the public started to disbelieve and distrust those media organs that had been lying to them for so long. And they voted for Donald Trump in droves. They saw behind it. They went to alternative media. Donald Trump was very good at going outside the mainstream media and connecting directly with the audience. I mean, his rallies are important for that reason. His superb genius-level communication skills, nobody does it like him. He's mocked for his simple use of language, but, I mean, that's the greatest writing of all, is distilling complicated topics down to a simple message. And that's what he does. And he gets through to people, he gets through to their hearts and their minds. And he managed to bypass the New York Times, the rancid lies from MSNBC, Washington Post, CNN, ABC News, all of them. And he won the popular vote. That is incredible.
And I think so many people had a big part in this, because you broke the story on the Hunter Biden laptop and it was disappeared. And I think that was a kind of a moment where there were a lot of people. I mean, you talk about the red pilling of America, but there were a lot of people who at that moment went, why would they get taken off of Twitter? Why would they be banned from all these places? And so along the way it had to happen, and I think it had to happen this way. And I really believe that this is the reason Donald Trump didn't have a second term in 2020, was because I believe that God was looking out for us and saying, there is so much bad happening behind the scenes that you have to know about it. And you broke that story. Everything got disappeared. Elon Musk came in and he said, we're going to expose this. We're going to have the Twitter files come out. And that was a shocking moment. Those hearings were unescapable. There was no going back for the Democrats at that point and saying, no, we didn't go and pick out this conservative and kick him off. Pick out this conservative and kick him off. We didn't actually take away your free speech. They couldn't say that because they had done that. And I thought you had a very sweet exchange with President Trump about Elon Musk, because of course we saw the big blow up. And I think that Elon, he made the point, he said, oh, he wouldn't have won without me. Donald Trump, no one can take this election away from Donald Trump. No one can take anything away. Like you said, he's a master communicator. He went places that he couldn't have gone. But I do think that everyone played a role to get us here. And Elon gave up a lot. I don't know why he did what he did recently. I think that you can tell me your opinion, but I think that when you haven't run for office, and he hasn't run for office, there are a lot of people who got involved in the Trump campaign when feelings were high. Everybody was excited. And there is an energy when you walk out on that stage with Donald Trump. You feel it. You feel this love, this amazing, overwhelming sense of joy at those rallies. You just talked about it. And Elon had seen that, but he became kind of the figure. I think even Saul Alinsky was always the theory of his ruining and disruption of a country is to focus on one character and take them down. And that was kind of what the Democrats did with Elon Musk. They were like, zoom in on this guy, make him the enemy. Do you think that that was too much for him? Donald Trump wasn't mean when you talked about it. He said there's no hard feelings, which I think people weren't expecting.
Yes, that's just fascinating what you've just said. I agree with it all. And yes, Donald Trump was very gracious about Elon Musk. Elon had said some terrible things about him, things that you can't take back and really you can't forget. But everyone expects Donald Trump to, hit back harder. But he's discerning and he understands that Elon is a different type of person. Almost childlike in some ways. Elon himself has said that he's on the spectrum, that he suffers from depression. He has a different kind of emotional and mental makeup to the average person, which is probably the key to his incredible success. I mean, you don't get to be the richest man in the world with this cornucopia of different companies where you're breaking ground and just doing the most amazing things and amazing things for humanity. I think he really has a good heart and he does want to help people who can't walk to walk again, help the blind to see, get mankind to Mars. He really is just an extraordinary man. But I saw him at the White House, as I said, and he really had a kind of a paternal relationship, father-son relationship with Donald Trump. And because he had a terrible childhood of his own, his father was just a monster from all accounts, and Elon says that himself. And so, and Donald Trump's the opposite. I mean, people don't give him credit for this, but he really is great with children. You see kids around him, they flock to him. Kids and dogs always have an instinct about adults who are safe to be around, and they flock to Donald Trump, and he likes them. He doesn't pander to them, but he just likes them, and they get that good vibe from him. And Elon was like that too, and he's Donald Trump is a kind man, and he has great relationships with all his adult children. They're all well-adjusted adults. And I think with Elon Musk, he probably detected that he was someone in need of kind of emotional fulfillment of sustenance, warmth, kindness. And look, he stayed overnight a couple of times with Donald Trump in the residence, slept in the Lincoln bedroom. They talked every time I saw them together, for instance, on election night, they were sitting next to each other, engaged deeply in conversation for hours. Donald Trump was very interested in what Elon Musk had to say and gave him his undivided attention. And Elon Musk sacrificed so much. Billions of dollars was wiped off Tesla. He was demonized. He was a darling of the left. Now he's an absolute demon of the left. I think what happened was he just threw his all into it, like he does with every project. And government didn't bend to his will like private companies do. And he butted heads with some important people in the administration, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. I asked Donald Trump about that, and he did agree that there was a fight between Scott Bessent, very loud, sort of pushing and shoving between Scott Bessent and Elon Musk outside the Oval Office. Donald Trump said there wasn't a fist fight, but there was shouting. I asked, did you hear it? And he said, yes. He said, but these things
I love
happen.
how he's like, that's not totally unusual. He was like, this is a high stakes. And it's true. You think about, you should have people with emotion. And he said, he said to be successful, you need energy. I thought that was fascinating because we all
Yes.
hear that Donald Trump never sleeps. He's always thinking. He's always involved in every detail. And I think that was kind of that kindred spirit with Elon Musk, because obviously when you look at Elon, you think energy. You know, this
Yes.
guy has a ton of energy. You said he has this portfolio of businesses. He is high energy. But I do think that I think from the outside, we saw that paternal relationship. And that I thought was beautiful, because I wanted to ask, do you think that you see a difference in this President Trump than the first term? Because the grace that he gave him, but it was almost like he's like, you know what, we got in a fight, but I don't want you to trash him, because I think he still has a bit of ownership over his relationship with Elon. Like, we did something together, and I'm not going to let anything be taken away from that.
Yes. But also, look, I'm not sure that Donald Trump has changed. I really don't. I think he's one of the few people that doesn't change. He learns and adapts, which is amazing for a person of his age. But I don't think his
that. Yes.
personality intrinsically has changed since he was a child. I just think he kind of said that yesterday, like, people are born this way. And, you know, you do learn a bit as you get older, but you don't really change intrinsically. He certainly doesn't. And I think Victor Davis Hanson has made this beautiful point, which is that it doesn't matter whether Donald Trump is sort of out with the people of Ohio inspecting, you know, that railway disaster that happened under Biden, or if he's in, you know, boardrooms in Wall Street or at a rally or in Washington. Doesn't matter who he's with, world leaders. He's exactly the same. He dresses the same. He doesn't. A lot of politicians, like Joe Biden, used to do this kind of slum it, go and dress in sort of working man's clothes when he went out with the union guys. No one buys it. No, Donald Trump is just Donald Trump, who he is. But I think, look, during the debate with Joe Biden, you saw the similar thing. He could have gone in for the jugular, which would have been really ugly, because it would have been just kicking a dog when he's down. He didn't do that. He restrained himself. And I think he won points because he didn't do anything. Like, he just looked quizzically at the camera and kind of looked at Joe Biden and said, you know, I don't know what he was talking about. I don't think he does either. That was about as mean as he got. And I think people respected that. Same with Elon. I think he looks at Elon and he realized that Elon can't really help it. I mean, I think he probably was going through a bit of a manic phase. You know, he just didn't have the wherewithal to discipline himself and not just let his anger erupt on, like a child having a tantrum on Twitter and saying, you know, ridiculous things that weren't true, provably weren't true. But he just wanted to lash out and hurt Trump. And I think I can understand it, because, you know, he was in the cocoon of the White House. He kind of got forced out, and he's back out, and he thinks, okay, well, I'm just going to fix my companies. And he realizes what a disaster it's turned into while he was away, because of all the attacks from the Democrats. And the Democrats really did inflict damage on him, and in a way they did win. But he will prevail ultimately. He's so brilliant. I'm sure he'll come back better than ever. But I think Donald Trump feels like we all do. Elon Musk is a treasure, but he's also fragile, and he needs some nurturing and, you know, a soft touch, which you're not going to get from the Democrats, even though he does so much good for America and the world.
I mean, it's hard to be under the kind of attack and have the dealerships being set on fire. And I mean, you think about the contrast of the media response to Tesla dealerships being set on fire. They couldn't have cared less. To California, they're like, you know what? Burn the gas-powered vehicles, because if you burn the battery vehicles, then you're going to have an environmental disaster. Are you kidding me? I mean, I cannot believe what I hear from the mainstream media.
I mean, look, and the mainstream media is just hand in glove with these radical Democrats. I mean, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are bad enough, but I just heard, what's his name in Chicago, Johnson, anyway, the mayor of Chicago.
Oh, yeah, Brandon Johnson?
Brandon Johnson, yeah, complete lunatic. He's just gone out and encouraged the rioters and the anarchists to do as much damage as they can to resist Donald Trump and ICE. I don't know what you do when you have those kind of people in charge of big cities. It's not what the citizens want. Nobody in Chicago or in Los Angeles wants their house or their local business to be burned to the ground. They don't want to fear for their lives when they drive down the freeway, or, they don't want their stores being looted. And this is what the Democrats are enabling and encouraging. And it just reminds me of, the summer of love, so-called, in 2020, when Kamala Harris said on television, she goes, they should not stop. No, they will not stop, and they should not stop. She was encouraging them. She was bailing the rioters out. These rioters are not protesters. They are anarchists. As Donald Trump says, they are professional agitators. They are paid to do this. And thank goodness this afternoon we've got Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, and they're all going to, and the IRS, they're all going to track down the source of funding for these groups, and those people will feel the full force of the law.
Good. I mean, we have this problem in Michigan. Michigan is obviously run by Gretchen Whitmer. We have a massive crime problem that people don't even hear about. Just before I got in this interview, my girls have a pool party for the end of school. Dropped them off. I asked one of the moms, "How did your summer start?" And she said, "Well, not good. We dropped our car off at the Chevy dealer and it was stolen, along with 5 other cars that were stolen. She said, totally gutted. We got it back. It has drugs in it." She said, "It's filled with pot smell." She said, "I mean, it's totally totaled." She said, "This is a problem that's happening at dealerships across the state, but no one gets in trouble." It's just, this is Democrat America. Okay, I have one more thing before I let you go. I just want to get into, we're watching this situation in the Middle East very closely. Donald Trump said he thinks that he can make a deal with Iran. He said it's a little bit questionable right now. He said, "I hope that we can make a deal instead of having to go in there with any kind of weapons or force." And that was an interesting statement he made on your podcast, because that is leading us to believe that if they aren't going to, if they try to get a weapon, he will take action.
Yeah, he's been crystal clear about that. And I think it was interesting on the podcast. He just had the meeting in Camp David with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and he said all the admirals and generals. He wouldn't explain exactly what they were talking about, fair enough. But he did say one of the topics was Iran. And I asked him about, can we stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon? He said they're not going to get one way or the other, and I'd like to do it, the nice way with no one getting killed. We want to do a deal with Iran. We want them to prosper. We will help them prosper. We'll do trade with them, but there's no way they're getting the nuclear weapon. And I think he's resolute about that. And we've just seen yesterday. All the American personnel in the Middle East have been scaled back. They've been brought home in preparation for something, probably Israel. They're ready to go to bomb the nuclear facilities to stop Iran from being able to actually build that bomb or go to the fight. We keep on being told they're 28 days from having a bomb, but that's been going on for years, so I don't know quite what the truth of all that is. But certainly Israel's ready to go, and they need American help. I'm told that there are American planes are needed to carry some of these big bombs that they have that need to get underground. So if that happens, I think it was just like when Donald Trump wiped out Soleimani in his first term. He wiped out ISIS. People warned of escalation and so on, but he's very precise. He doesn't want war. He's not captive to the military-industrial complex, quite the opposite. They are very hostile to him and his implacable enemy, because they see him as an existential threat to their business model. Doesn't want war, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be strong when he needs to be. So, we'll see what happens. It is frightening times, but I think it's more frightening if Iran becomes a nuclear power.
I agree. I mean, but for folks out there who are listening, there's so much more that they can learn about that. But other things on the podcast, on your new podcast, it's Pod Force One. Check it out because there's a lot we didn't cover. I mean, he gets into some personal stuff about family, about music, about the kids. He talks about Gavin Newsom and what went on there and some of the stories Gavin told that aren't true. So I really encourage people to go listen to it. Is there some place that you want to promote it? What would you like to say about it?
Thanks, Tudor. Yes, look, it's very easy to find. It's Podforce One. Just go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, go to YouTube, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts, and just click subscribe. And please do a 5-star review or a like, whatever it is. If you like it, please give me the thumbs up. And I hope
an accent is really like a guilty pleasure for Americans. So we'll just go listen to it because you sound so wonderful.
Oh, thank you very much, Tudor. You're a darling.
Well, thank you so much. Miranda Devine, go check out her podcast. Again, it's Pod Force One. We're so glad you came on today. Thank you for joining me. And thank you all for joining us on the Tudor Dixon Podcast for this episode and others. Go to TudorDixonPodcast.com, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can see the whole video on Rumble at Tudor Dixon. Join us next time and have a blessed day.